Right, I'm going to tell you three things. I'm going to tell you why today is the greatest time to have been an entrepreneur ever. In all of the era of cars and aeroplanes and the Industrial Revolution and the emergence of America and all those historical events that have occurred, today is the best time to be an entrepreneur. So despite everything that you've ever read about a downturn and a flat economy or a slow growth economy or whatever, actually I completely disagree, and I'll show you some numbers to prove it. I'm also going to tell you why you here in the UK and specifically in London are probably the best placed entrepreneurs on the planet to take advantage of this opportunity that we exist in. And I'm also going to spend a few moments saying a little bit about how to do it. Reality, it's a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about is exactly the same as what Emma talked about a little earlier on, but probably just a slightly different spin on it. But I completely support absolutely everything you say, and I love Google Translate as well, because I think it makes an incredibly big difference. I have to shoot off straight afterwards. I have two colleagues who are going to make themselves known now, Sten and Pete, are over there. So if you want to chat with these guys afterwards, that would be great. So, we live in the greatest era to be an entrepreneur. This is I don't know if you can see that very clearly, this is a Goldman Sachs chart. What it basically says is in the last 10 years, the number of new middle-class consumers generated by the world exceeds the number of consumers in the entire G7 combined. That has just occurred in the last 10 years. What it also tells you is that that is about to happen again. So in the space of 20 years, we've generated the equivalent of 2 new G7s. US, UK, France, Germany, Canada, Italy, Japan, combined. Now, I don't know when that happened in history before. I don't think it ever has. But it happened. It's happened in 10 years, and today it's going to happen again. Between 2010 and 2020, it's on its way again. Just some numbers. BMW sold 105,000 cars worldwide in January 2011. 20,000 of which were in China. You know, people don't understand what's going on in the world. You know, one piece of advice I'd give everybody here, everybody who hasn't done it yet, book a flight to China. Just go. Book a hotel for 3 nights. Just go. Go and look at it. Go and see what's going on, and just open your eyes. It is incredible. I heard this morning Inchcape have decided that they're going to invest 170 million quid on new showrooms in China over the next, whatever it is, 3 or 4 years. I mean, this is going on under our very noses. And what seems to be happening in the UK, I think, is we seem to be obsessed with talking down in our media. We seem to be obsessed with talking down the economy and the opportunity and how tough it is for entrepreneurs. This whole thing in the BBC today is how to cope in a slow growth economy. I'm thinking, we're not in a slow growth economy, we're in a 4% growth across the world economy. That feels like a high growth economy to me. But only if you decide that you'll sell your products or services beyond these shores. Okay? And so I think we're in a humongous opportunity. And I don't remember the last time a medium had been created where we could reach all of them. And yet today we have a medium where we can reach all these people. Now that Facebook isn't in China, there's an equivalent. But Facebook added 50 million new users last month. Okay, so they're now at 650 million users, which means we now have a technology platform through Facebook, through Twitter, through Orkut, and so on and so forth. We have technology platforms to reach those people, to spread the word in a way that's never been possible before, for no cost. I mean, it's a phenomenal opportunity out there. It's all about understanding the promotion and so on. So, you know, when was the last time a new G7 was created? In a decade. And when was the last time a new medium was created to reach them all? I don't know. But what I do know is that as a consequence, there are growth companies out there that are reaping the benefits. So who's heard of Groupon? Mostly heard of Groupon? Founded in 2008. They're the fastest company in history to have reached $1 billion of revenue. They reached $1 billion in 2010. As I say, founded in 2008. And they were offered Google offered $6 billion for them in January this year, and they turned it down. How cool is that? So, this is the greatest era to be an entrepreneur. When was the last time a G7 was created? And a medium was created to exploit that to get to that market, so that companies could reach $1 billion? I think the answer to that is never. So we live in the greatest era to have been an entrepreneur. I think there's no question. You think about. I always, one of the things that really annoys me. I'm a child of the '80s, product of the '80s, in terms of coming through college and school and so on. And I'm really frustrated that I've missed mobile phones. If I was in mobile phones, if I'd have worked that one out and opened a few stores, I'd have made loads of money. And I'm really frustrated about it. But actually, I don't need to be frustrated because I live today in the greatest time to have been an entrepreneur. It's better than cars. It's better than also airlines. It's better than all those massive transformations that we've seen across history. And the other reason is that access to capital is now changing, right? So if you look at what's going on in capital markets today, some significant changes. And so you know what's going on in crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a phenomena that's out there. It's just amazing. And there are sites popping up all over the place. Sponsibly is a very good one. Mainly it's focused in arts today, but you can see that being focused on businesses as well. Great way to raise up to about 10 grand is to look at some of these crowdfunding sites. And some of these examples here, they're all specific in different sectors, and there's loads and loads of them popping up all the time. You type crowdfunding into Google, you'll see new ways of raising money. Put your project up, put your video up, tell them what you're going to do, and see what happens. People effectively are raising a few grand through a few hundred people. People pledging 10 quid, 20 quid, 50 quid to your venture, and that's changing capital, right? Because suddenly you're able to get off the ground with something, raise a little bit of money. And you also see the emergence of global angel networks. So what global angel networks are now doing is they're getting together. Look at Keiretsu Forum and what they're doing with their chapters as they build chapters around the world. They're looking to connect these chapters up. So it's not an unusual situation now to find a company from one country being funded by an angel investor from another country and another angel investor from yet a third one, both of which come with great, with money, but also with access to market and opportunity and everything else that comes with that. So I think access to capital is also changing. And of course, the startup costs are lower than they've ever been. Quick Start Global helps companies go international. We're a 5-year-old company. We employ 600 people already. We started off in my home study 5 years ago, January, just gone, so 5 years and 2 months ago. We lived on Skype. There was myself in the UK, there was my co-founder in San Francisco, and there was our first employee in India. And we lived on Skype. We were 3 hours a day on Skype. Now, if you think about trying to set up an international company or go international before, it was really expensive, really expensive. I don't think we could have afforded the phone calls a few years ago. Yet, somehow, Skype's there. Skype will be rewritten in history as the greatest business enabling tool ever. I'm convinced of it. And so we have Skype. We have cloud services, right? Software out there. So all of our apps are all out there somewhere. We don't need expensive infrastructure. We don't need expensive IT people. We just kind of buy our applications as we need them on a per user per month basis. So that changes the way you start a company. You talked about Regis already. Virtual office. When we started Quick Start Global, you had to, you start a company and you say, we help companies go international. There's a credibility problem, right, if you're operating out of a home study in Surrey. So what we did is we took 5 virtual offices around the world from Regis in the major continents. And we put them on those addresses on our website. And we took the phone numbers. And they all came to my mobile. But what it effectively meant is that we were a multinational instantly. You are what you are on the web. So effectively, you became a multinational. It's very easy to do. It's very low cost. It's $100 or whatever, $150 per location. So you can actually invest in that. And that's part of your PR and part of how you make it happen. And video conferencing is so cheap nowadays. It's so good. We use this life size of product. It's £2,500 for a unit. High definition. We have it on a 50-inch big Samsung thing. And, I did a video conference with an entrepreneur in South Africa last night. And it's so superbly clear. And it doesn't, like in the old days, video conferences had a lot of false dawns. And, you used to have to get the techie to come in and kind of figure it out. Today, it doesn't work like that. Today, it's like a Sky remote controller. Dial, video conference room, Cape Town. Shh. And then, hi, how you doing? It's as simple as that. It's high definition. It works beautifully across the internet. So, we have established that we live in the greatest time to be an entrepreneur because we've got money, we've got super cheap tools to allow us to set up, and we've got a massive market. It's a market that's never existed in the way that it has before. But so why are you guys here best placed to take advantage? What is it about the UK? Because I spent a lot of time. This BBC thing is, why does Germany always beat us? And I'm actually about to argue that they don't. But anyway. Why are you best placed? It's because you're here, because you're right here in London, actually. So when I want to go somewhere, it's always a direct flight. I never connect. I love that. I hate connecting. It's really dull, and it wastes a lot of time, and it's just tedious. Yeah, if you go from Heathrow, pretty much anywhere you need to go, Sao Paulo, Tokyo, Beijing, Cape Town, San Francisco, pretty much Moscow, pretty much in every direction, right? It's direct. And you can't reach Australia direct because it's just sheer distance. But pretty much everywhere else, yeah, you can pretty much get there direct, which is great. The other thing I find in my business is we have GMT. Now, you talk about an asset that you can never take away from a country. Let's talk about GMT. GMT is fantastic as an asset. For me, what that means is I can talk to my colleagues in China at 9 o'clock in my morning and at 5 o'clock in their afternoon. So it's their working day and my working day, so it's not inconvenient. And I can go all the way through the day, all the way around the world, until 5 o'clock in my evening. I can talk to San Francisco at 9 o'clock in their morning. And what that means is that within my working day, I don't have to stress about 2 a.m. conference calls or 11 p.m. conference calls or whatever else it might be. During my normal working day, I can still have a family life and everything else. During my regular working day, I can talk to the world. And I think that's a great asset. We have English. English is the de facto language of business across the world. It just is. You look at the number of people there. That's first language, 400 odd million people. Second language, 1.4 billion people, up to 1.4 billion people. It is the de facto language of business. It makes British people incredibly lazy when it comes to learning new language, but it's an asset, really. You look at the cultural diversity. I mean, the cultural diversity in this country is phenomenal, particularly in London. It's just phenomenal. As a consequence of that, I was talking to somebody about multilingual customer service the other day. And we concluded that probably the best location, most cost-effective possibly, for all the languages, if you wanted to do 20, 30, 40 languages, for all the languages, probably London. Because where else are you going to go where you can get people that speak pretty much every language on the planet? And you can get them for no more than a temp-type wage. I can't think of many other places where that's possible. So right here kind of works. No one ever thought of London as an outsourcing destination, did they? But it probably is, actually, if you think about it, if you start going lots and lots and lots of languages. We also have this enviable reputation for quality in Britain. And it's an incredible brand. The kind of design in Britain, made in Britain brand is incredible. So we all know, don't we, that the all-German Mercedes Formula One team with 2 German drivers is based in Brackley in Northamptonshire, don't we? Yeah. And the Austrian Red Bull team is based in Milton Keynes. We know that, right? Because there's an amazing reputation for quality, amazing engineering skills that are still here. And the other thing I think we have is we have stoicism. And people say, well, what's stoicism all about? And I put this kind of rebel flag in Libya up there. I reckon if you look at most nationalities, it's kind of European more than it is just British, but if you look at most nationalities, the Brits will be first back in. In fact, they tried to get there and they got arrested the other day, didn't they? But the Brits will be first back in. Because there's this, we'll get in there, it doesn't really matter, we don't get phased. You look at some other nationalities around the world, they tend to shy away from the kind of hot spots. We get straight back in there. So I think if you look at it collectively, this is the best place on the planet to run a global business from, regardless of size. Doesn't really matter. As I say, we started off in a home study. So how do you go from here? That came out weird. There were little dots before. You need to be... that doesn't really work when they come out like that. But anyway, imagine they're little dots. You need to become a 21st century company. Emma talked about some of these examples of someone that's kind of based here and manufacturing there and selling over there, and this is the way of the world. That is the way of the world. I mean, you know, people are going on and on and on about manufacturing in the UK, and you look at Dyson. Dyson's a great, successful story, right? They sell vacuum cleaners, hand dryers, and fans, cool fans. You know, they design them in Britain, they make them in China, and they sell them across the world. What an amazing story. And that's the shape of a 21st century company. Don't get hung up on, if you're a service company, it doesn't really matter where your people are. You know, where your customer service is, where your developers are, doesn't matter. You go to the right place for whatever suits your business. It doesn't really matter where your customers are. Get out there and win them. And that is the shape of a 21st century company. I mean, some examples. Emma's got some great examples, and, you know, I also wrote a book, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And it's probably, if you kind of look at it, as Emma's got the book of brand new, fresh kind of companies, and then I've got a bunch of a few years old, maybe 100 employees type companies as the examples, and these are kind of typical of that. You know, these guys are ClearSale Group. Time's limited, so I'll wrap it up with one. ClearSale Group is a company that was founded 6 years ago around a dining table in Woking. And because of the restrictions they had with their previous employers, they used to work for the people that invented the Tesco Club card, dunnhumby. And they had restrictions that we couldn't win a customer in the UK, the two former employees. And so they thought, well, okay, we'll win customers somewhere else then. Their first customer was in Ukraine. And so off they went, and they said, well, we can do all your analytics, and we can put loyalty schemes in place, and they won it. What a disaster. They won this big deal in Ukraine. They thought, we need some analysts. Oh, my God, you can't hire analysts in Britain. There's just not enough around. So they worked with us, and they hired a bunch of analysts in India. So now they're based in a dining table, based around a dining table in Woking, with a customer in Ukraine and some analysts in India providing the service. Phenomenal. So then they thought, well, we've got to grow. So the next customer was in Russia. The next customer was in Canada. The next customer was in Australia. The next customer is in the US. They still, 6 years old, they still don't have a UK client. Now, they don't work around a dining table in Woking anymore. They have an office in town here. But that is a 21st century company, right? Because the barriers are gone, completely destroyed. So that's all I wanted to say. Want to know more? Email us, free copy of the book. The book is literally, it's not, I don't think it competes in any way, because I think it sits probably the next stage along in a business life cycle. There are 10 companies that have become significant on a global, like ClearSale, they're one of the examples, that have become quite significant on a global basis within a few years of being founded, and we'd love to share it with you. I'm going to take a couple of questions. As I say, Sten and Pete are around for the rest of the day. We'd love to talk to you.